Belmy is here once again reporting with Babe Ruthless. That's right, it's another stage break, this time featuring one of my favorite entries, King of Fighters 97. That's right, we're gonna go over and stage break it down with our favorite YouTuber. So, all I gotta say is, Clemens Belmy out, and take it away, Babe Ruthless.
Thanks, Clemens, for that amazing introduction. I'll take it away from here, and you can check out his channel linked in the description below for more amazing content. The fourth game in the King of Fighters series, King of Fighters 97, was initially exclusively available on arcades only. In it, the ancient being known as Orochi strives to awaken from its slumber in the game's finale in hopes of wiping out humanity. This game laid a foundation of solid gameplay, intricate levels, and eye-catching locations. It's also a fascinating look back at a brief time when there was renewed interest in the arcade scene and an increased caliber of newly released fighting games. In order to expedite development and reduce expenses, KOF 97 leveraged resources from earlier games. This allowed the development team to focus their time and energy on other tasks, like developing more fighting gameplay mechanics and showing distinctive, vibrant stages that were full of personality and charm. Before the internet, playing this game as a child gave me the opportunity to experience various cultures and traditions. I could travel to Monaco, Tokyo, and a whole host of amazing places while playing this game. And I have a lot of respect for SNK because they really weren't afraid to experiment with stage design here. For instance, they might have easily stuck to just Japan or Southtown like in Art of Fighting and Fatal Fury. But the creators went above and beyond to produce some truly unique stages that I really appreciate. As far as the locations go, this is the first game to not have team-specific stages, perhaps because there were way too many characters to do one stage for each team. Before we move on though, it would be amazing if you'd leave a like on this video and subscribe if you want to see more content. And with that out of the way, let's hop on a plane and get right into our first stage, Bali. When you first enter a stage, the game tells you the time, number of attendees, and the exact place where your characters are fighting. This is a really cool detail that lets the player know that these fights are being broadcast on a global network, showcasing the KOF 97 tournament to viewers all around the world. So the Bali stage actually takes place in, and apologies if I mispronounce this, Tuban, Indonesia at 6:30 p.m. In real life, Tuban is an ancient town that can trace its founding back to the 13th century and has significant cultural and historical value. It's particularly notable for its importance within the Islam religion. Moreover, it's an important business hub and is well known for its natural beauty, which includes numerous caverns and beaches. Tuban is about a 10-hour drive from Bali, so not actually super close, but the stage seems to have incorporated that Bali vacation feel with a beautiful sunset and some palm trees. A prominent feature are the videographers recording footage of the King of Fighters tournament. They're scattered around the stage and are part of a fictional company called Satella. You can pretty much find these videographers on every stage in this game. Other details that remain constant include your teammates, who double as part of the background, and the title and logo of this game on the floor, with the notable exception of the Orochi boss fight stages. Now, starting from the left side of the stage, we see a large crowd, and behind them, some people, maybe Hindu monks, dressed in traditional clothes and ringing what appear to be some sort of bells. It's hard for me to say what exact style of clothing they're wearing since Indonesia is such a diverse country, but my guess is that they're probably wearing some sort of traditional Hindu monk attire. To the right, there are two women wearing a traditional headdress and Balinese attire while dancing and waving a cloth. They're also standing near a large umbrella plastered with tournament sponsors, and we can see some more advertisements on the palm trees to the right. Beneath the banner is a person doing a barong dance, which is a type of lion dance. A barong dance is a traditional Balinese ritual dance that originates from the 11th century. The dance is named after Barong, the mythical lion and king of spirits. The dance depicts the battle between himself and Rangda, the evil demon queen, in which he eventually emerges victorious. Behind the lion, we also see a Maru tower and an ornate-looking gate with two fires on either side, likely some sort of temple door. Finally, on the far right, we see some intense worshippers doing their thing. And let's not forget about the cute chicken, or maybe rooster, in the middle of the stage, which can either be white or brown, and the parrot to the right, which sometimes will fly off. Finally, as the rounds progress, the sun begins to set, and you also see a title card girl come in to announce each round. Her outfit is specific to the stage, and in this case she's wearing a headdress and some sort of bikini with a wrap around her waist. As far as the stage song goes, it's very tribal sounding with some loud, discordant chanting, bells, and chirping crickets. It's not really what I would call a traditional stage song either. It's more of a stage ambiance rather than a proper song. This is because the music from KOF 97 differs from previous games in that besides certain teams such as New Faces and the Orochi team, there's no team-specific music. Instead, you'll hear stage ambiance unless you're playing as or against one of these two teams. And on a bit of a side note, a fun fact is that in the global match version of KOF 97, there's a glitch where music sometimes doesn't play at all. Music aside, from a visual standpoint, this is my favorite stage of the game. We're starting off with a bang. It's colorful, energetic, and packed to the brim with all of these striking elements and impressive lighting effects. Definitely a 10 out of 10 for me. Next up is the China stage, which is located in Kowloon and takes place at 7 p.m. at night. Some of you might have heard of Kowloon thanks to the famous Kowloon Walled City, which, when it existed, was the most densely populated city in the world. In a space less than 1/100th of a square mile, there were 350 buildings between 10 to 14 stories high with 33,000 occupants. In other words, it was about 119 times more dense than New York City. It was a self-regulating, anarchist city with its own set of rules. So all of this was to say that because, 1, this stage looks way too spacious to take place in the walled city, and 2, this area was demolished several years before this game went into development, this stage presumably takes place in the actual city of Kowloon and not the walled city. With that being said, when your characters first enter the stage, some firecrackers will go off and a man wearing a lion dance costume will drop down onto the stage. This fight takes place during a Lunar New Year celebration, which typically happens in late January or February. During the Lunar New Year, firecrackers are set off to ward away evil spirits, while the lion dance is meant to bring prosperity. You can also see a dragon dance happening in the back, which has a similar meaning of bringing good luck in and ushering out evil. There's also a person holding a rod with a ball on top called the Pearl of Wisdom who is leading the dragon dance. Your characters are located on some sort of metal platform, and the floor makes a slight clunk sound when you jump on it. You can also see firecrackers lined all around the platform. There are also a ton of sponsor advertisements and signs written in Chinese. This sign roughly translates to King of Fighters Celebration, and on the far left, the blue sign translates to Deciding Battle. Further along, some men in white shirts holding small round signs that say sky or heaven depending on how you look at it. To the left, there is also a nearby restaurant and a Satella videographer. You'll also see 3 people on the sidelines here who switch out randomly. These 3 people can be any of the following groups I'm about to mention. And sit tight because there are a lot of possibilities. First of all, you might see the old grandmasters Tung Fu Ru, who is Terry's master, Jubei Yamada, who is Mai's master, and Lee from Art of Fighting. There's the American sports team, who are training for a King of Fighters tournament that I'm sure they won't be participating in. Heavy D appears in a second cameo, along with Kasumi's father Toto waving around some Japanese fans, while Duck King from Fatal Fury seems engrossed by the match. Another team is Roddy and Kathy from Top Hunter, which is a beat-em-up, and Captain Clapton. There's also G-Mantle and Eiji from Art of Fighting and Sohaku from Fatal Fury. A fun fact is that G-Mantle was sort of originally intended to be a mascot for the company, but was eventually phased out. There's also Art of Fighting 3 characters in some sort of entanglement, which include Bob Wilson, Roddy Burtz, and Lenny Creston. And finally, there's Sally Elizabeth, who are King's friends and coworkers, and for some reason, Rugel's Panther. Some of these combinations of characters are a bit odd to me, so if I'm missing context behind why these characters are paired up, please let me know. Especially the connection between King's friends and Rugal's panther. I have no clue why they were put together. Alright, with those cameos out of the way, let's get back to the stage details. On the right side, there's a small crowd next to more signs of the broadcasting company and tournament logos. In addition, as far as I could tell, the stage doesn't seem to change between rounds, unlike the Bali stage. The title card girl, however, is different and is wearing a traditional Chinese qipao, which is typical wear for New Year's, holidays, and other special celebrations. In terms of the music, once again, also not really a stage song here, just some stage ambience. You hear the sounds of the crowd cheering and the drums beating, but honestly that's about it. Overall, I think this is a fantastic stage with lots of details and interesting cameos. The tournament happening during a New Year's celebration really makes the ambiance feel energetic and hype. I really like this stage a lot. The next stage is Korea at 1 p.m. and takes place in, excuse me for mispronouncing this, Gyeongbokgung Palace. Interestingly, the name of the palace is spelled differently in the opening screen versus how I see it written online, but this could just be a translation difference. So, Gyeongbokgung Palace is a very famous historical site in Seoul, the capital of South Korea, and was built in 1395. It's the largest of 5 different palaces in Seoul that were built during the Joseon period and was home to Korean royalty, along with being the center of government affairs. As far as I know, Seoul doesn't host tournaments in this palace in real life, but in KOF land, it's fair game. Moving to the stage itself, you can see the main palace gate in the background. I'm not exactly sure which gate this is in real life. There are a number of them, and as far as I could tell, none of them quite match how this area looks in-game. It could potentially be the main Gwanghwamun gate, but I can't say for sure. In addition, there's also a pagoda prominently featured in the stage, which I think the developers might have made up. Continuing on, other details nearby include a small crowd and broadcasting van. I'm assuming that this crowd is likely some sort of press or news organization since they're all wearing the same yellow color with cameras. On the right side, there's another crowd and a group of Satella videographers. And on the far right, we can also see a much larger crowd that is very close to the stage, along with security doing a bit of crowd control. Above the crowd, there are some really pretty decorations in red, blue, and yellow. I believe that this color scheme is supposed to represent the Korean Semtaeguk, which is a religious symbol that corresponds to the heavens, earth, and humanity. In the foreground, your players are fighting on gym and bamboo mats, which make different sounds when you jump on them. They're also standing beneath the Korean national flags, which are hanging from a lighting rig of sorts as one of the Satella videographers follows you around the stage. Then to the far left, you have more yellow, red, and blue decorations, a spinning globe with the KOF logo, drummers, and women wearing hanbok while holding fans. For some context, the hanbok is the traditional clothing of Korea, with women wearing a top and skirt and men donning a top and trousers of sorts. The title card girl between rounds also wears a hanbok. Also, funnily enough, the stage on the left looks like it has this huge sound system, which is kind of ironic considering the stage ambiance is quiet and subtle music, with the sounds of the drumming and the crowd. Overall, there are no changes to the stage or song between rounds, unlike the Bali stage. In addition, this stage has an orderly and clean feel to it, especially when compared to the prior 2 stages. Next up, we're going on down to Adventureland at 11:12 a.m. in East Farmingdale, New York. This location was kind of surprising to me, given that I feel like most US-based stages are in Manhattan or LA, so I really appreciate the variety in location here. This stage is largely based on Disneyland, and the picture of the ride during the intro card is likely the rocket jet ride from Tomorrowland. And that's just the beginning of all of the Disneyland references in this stage. Starting on the right, we see a steamboat that's strikingly similar to the Mark Twain riverboat ride and is full of people watching the match. There's also the surrounding Frontierland/New Orleans Square-esque buildings, along with a roller coaster and a hot air balloon way off in the distance. Then there's another crowd standing in front of the buildings, though it's a bit hard to see with the cameramen in the way. To the left of that, we can see a giant globe, spinning gears, and a wind-up key on top of some sort of platform in the middle of the river. Also, funnily enough, a sign that just says the word "here" in all caps. You know, in case you forgot you were here in America. As you continue to the far left, the theme of the park becomes much more cartoonish, almost like a Toontown-esque area with hills and a KOF sign. Back in real life, the actual Toontown area in Disneyland closed in 2011, but actually is supposedly coming back this year, which is a pretty cool fact. Back to the main stage, there is a ton of confetti coming down and a really cool mailbox on the right. It's probably just decorative since I doubt anybody's receiving mail on this platform, but still a really cute detail. There's also 2 Satella employees on the stage taking notes and filming, along with mascot characters holding signs that say Gen Z next to a cowgirl. I think this is probably just a sponsor, but it might also be an abbreviation of Gonitz, which I don't know why these guys would be celebrating him in particular. I guess even this fake Disneyland is rooting for evil, but just a personal theory. In the middle, there is also a country band and a singing mascot dog, which does not match with the ambient music at all. It sounds much more like a marching band or parade-esque piece with brass, woodwinds, and people screaming. This stage ambience is definitely the most orchestrated, song-like sounding one so far. Other details include the title card girl as a magician's showgirl in a pink outfit, and once again, the stage remains the same throughout the 3 rounds and does not change with the round progression. Overall, I think the stage is really cute and colorful. Aside from the weird mascot characters, it's a very charming stage. Our next stage is in Japan, specifically inside the Koshien Stadium, which is a baseball field located about halfway between Kobe and Osaka. In real life, it's a fairly old stadium, and as of this video, is 99 years old since it was first opened in 1924. It's the home stadium of the Osaka Tigers, and also hosts the National High School Baseball Tournament. I've watched a few baseball animes in my day, and they're always talking about going to Koshien, so this was a fun tidbit of knowledge. I had no idea that this was the place that they were always talking about. My tangent aside, weirdly enough, the stage almost looks like some sort of club or rave and seems to be in an enclosed space, whereas the actual stadium itself is open air. It could be that the angle of the stage is against the overhang of the roof, so it just appears enclosed, but honestly, I don't think the stage looks much like the stadium at all. Honestly, this could be any random warehouse and I wouldn't know any better, so an interesting choice of inspiration. That aside, this is one of the most straightforward stages. Still tons of detail here, but compared to the prior stages, less to talk about. The stage opens up with your characters standing on top of a platform with barriers holding the huge crowd back. There is also a giant disco ball hanging from the ceiling and some green and red lights on the sides of the stage and near the ball. Between rounds, you'll see the lighting of the stage changing from a more neutral color, then to blue, then to orange, then neutral again in the 4th round. This color shift could be in random order, but as far as I could tell, it follows this set pattern. Then there's the giant signs with KOF Festival 97 on either side and TVs with static above the signs. You can also see what might be a protective baseball net in a grid pattern in the far background. In addition, you have these 2 metal structures here that are actually hidden KOF logos. Always gotta be plugging the brand, I guess. Finally, as far as music goes, the stage ambiance is just the sound of the screaming crowd. Overall, this isn't my favorite stage since I think it's a bit of a lost opportunity. SNK really could have done something cooler with the theming and song, given the interesting set pieces and energy of the stage, but unfortunately it did not end up that way. Next up, the Monaco stage takes place at noon. Occurring during the famous Circuit de Monaco and the Formula 1 Monaco Grand Prix, the racetrack is located in the Monte Carlo neighborhood. A fun fact is that this stage is the only one that can't be played in versus mode. Despite the stage happening in the middle of a racetrack, there is no active race happening. We can see barriers, tires, and sponsor signs lining the track. You've also got your usual Satella video crew and van, along with one employee who seems to be directing the crowd with red sticks. Then there's the crowds to the left and right sides of the stage, with the crowd on the left in some bleachers and a cute dog, and then the crowd on the right on top of some stairs. On this side, you can see someone who looks law-suitingly similar to Master Orochi, with shades and a turtle shell on his back. Interestingly enough, there seems like there's some sort of mascot head on top of this blue structure that could perhaps be a phone booth, but it's hard to tell. This head might be a reference to something I'm not familiar with, so if you do happen to know, please leave a comment. Moving on, you've also got a bunch of palm trees, and then way in the back, we can see boats, flags of different countries, and the cityscape. There's also the 3 girls under an umbrella hiding away from the sun. And speaking of girls, the title card girl for the stage is the same as the one from the Japan stage, but palette swapped. In terms of music, the stage ambience has the screaming crowd and a little bit of a funky guitar melody. I don't really think it matches the mood of the stage, but this is fairly inoffensive to me. Overall, the stage is pretty cool. It definitely makes me want to visit Monaco, and the colors of the stage are really appealing to me. In addition, the stage is also in KOF 14, and I'll get into that version right about now. So now we hop forward quite some time to King of Fighters 14. In this game, the Monaco stage is called City Circuit. My first thoughts on the stage is that it seems to be super hot outside since you can see heat waves in the back. Some other differences include the blue structure being gone, and the giant billboard of Antonov, the host of the tournament, on the right side of the stage. In addition, the area is less packed than in KOF 97, so there's some more room to stand and breathe. In addition, the mountains, boats, and water in the background are also more prominent, and you can actually see the water line now. There's also some boats that move back and forth, and the tethered boats that used to bob up and down in the water are now still. In front of those boats, on occasion, you'll also see a truck that will pass by, and if you win around with Nakaruru, a Samurai Shodown truck will show up right at the end of a match. The same goes for Terry and the Fatal Fury truck, and Ryo with his Art of Fighting truck. The designs on these trucks are key art from their corresponding games. Overall, the 2 Monaco stages are fairly similar in spirit and appearance, and both are excellent and creative renditions of the Grand Prix circuit. So, KOF 14 tangent aside, let's dive back into 97's other stages. First of all, you have the Riot of Blood variant stages, which are bloody red negative versions of normal stages. They only appear when you play against Orochi Leona or Iori, and don't lose for the entire arcade run. In addition, the music that plays during these variant stages is called Control Crisis. It's a very unsettling piece at the beginning, with a loud thumping heartbeat, then the sudden explosion of discordant piano notes. The whole song is very chaotic, but then segues into this heavy rock bit with electric guitar. These bits are then interspersed with some quieter, more discordant sounding sections, which creates this really fresh contrast. And if you couldn't tell already, I really like this song. Besides the Riot of Blood stages, there's also the mid-boss/boss environments, which are 4 different versions of the same stage. And this is where you fight the Awakened Orochi team, and then finally Orochi itself. So first up is your battle against Chris. Your characters are fighting on some sort of stone platform in what seems to be the middle of nowhere, surrounded by mountains and lightning. The most prominent features of the stage are the giant purple flame in the middle, surrounded by pillars, with flames seeping up through cracks in the floor. This purple color responds to the character you're playing against. So for Chris, it's purple, but for Shermie, it's a flashing lightning white. And speaking of Shermie's stage, hers starts off similar to Chris's. However, as the match progresses, white lightning strikes the pillars around the stage, eventually reducing them to little stumps with a glowing center. The background also has these heavy layers of fog or maybe mist all over the mountains. The flame in the middle of the stage has also disappeared, and a large hole pulsating with electric energy has opened up. A personal theory of mine is that these pillars represent the seals holding Orochi back, and as the rounds progress, we see this seal weakening further and further. So in the third round, we have Yashiro's stage, and it kind of looks like everything has gone to hell. You have lava bubbling and exploding in the middle of the platform, seeping through the cracks on the floor, and the mountains and pillars of lava in the background. This likely represents Yashiro's earth-controlling powers, and the overall ambiance of this stage is very energetic and tense. Switching gears to the music, all three of these stages share the same stage song called Rhythmic Hallucination. It's one of the more popular songs in KOF and has a ton of remixes. This version in particular has a strong beat and various guitar riffs accentuated by the drums. So, your team has fought and defeated Chris, Shermie, and Yashiro. After a cutscene, the final boss of the game then reveals itself. Orochi, the ancient evil that your team must now vanquish. Your fight against this evil threat opens up with a purplish-blue light flickering from the hole in the center of the stage, which really contributes to this creepy, much quieter atmosphere. The tone is further emphasized by discordant bell sounds, percussion, and a strange chanting in the background. In addition, there is light coming from the surrounding pillars, and the mountains that used to be in the background are now just gone. Maybe the platform is higher than before, or perhaps the mountains are obscured by all the clouds, but it's hard to say. There is also light coming from cracks in the ground, which now have more of a softer glow versus the crazy lava explosions from the Yashiro stage. The contrast between the extremely violent Yashiro stage to this much calmer one really gives a sense of foreboding and consequence to this fight. It's almost like Orochi doesn't have to show off since its mere presence speaks for itself. In the second round, the stage transforms slightly from the first. There are arcane symbols inside of the light pillars, and the whole background is rushing through the sky. Not a ton to say here, since the stage is fairly similar. Then finally, in the third round, the clouds are gone, and you're left with this flat, blank background. The pillar of light in the center is also gone, along with the symbols in the surrounding pillars, which then reappear in the background instead, in this rainbow, pulsating wheel that follows your characters around the stage. The atmosphere here gives a sense of heavy pressure and consequence. Orochi is holding a ritual to destroy the planet, and you have to defeat him to interrupt the ceremony and prevent the annihilation of the world. Now, switching gears to the music, all three stages share the same stage song called Orochi's Theme. It's actually one of my favorites from the series and is a very eerie piece that, for whatever reason, in the beginning gives me Major Majora's Mask vibes. There is this discordant note getting louder and louder, the tribal instrumentation, and a melody that kind of sounds like people chanting. Between Orochi's theme and Control Crisis, there are some amazing songs in this OST, and I highly encourage you to check them out. So KOF 97 would not be the last time we'd see the Orochi stages. Not only do they appear in KOF 97 and 98, but also in KOF 98 Ultimate Match. This game is KOF 98, somewhat remade in 3D for the PlayStation 2. And in this version, not everything was remade from scratch. The character sprites are the same ones from 97 and 98. Only the backgrounds were remade and are largely the same, besides the obvious use of both 2D and 3D assets and some smaller detail changes that I'll discuss now. For Chris's stage, the pillars seem taller than before to me, but I could be wrong here. The stage also seems a bit flatter and less detailed than before. You can see that there's been some shading detail from KOF 97 that was removed, such as the shadows on the sides of the pillars. In Shermie's stage, the lightning crashes don't have as much of an impact, and the destruction of the surrounding pillars happens really quickly for whatever reason, as opposed to more slowly over the course of the match. In Yashiro's lava stage, the interplay of 2D and 3D assets is very clear here, and I like this stage quite a bit. Overall, the stage doesn't seem as chaotic as before, and it's not shaking as much. For the Orochi battle in 98 Ultimate Match, again, there weren't a ton of differences that I saw. For the first round, the main difference is the faster speed of the particles of light flowing up from the center, as well as the darker color of the light pillars. For the second round, the 2D symbols on the pillars are more defined. Finally, in the last round, the spinning wheel doesn't follow you around the stage much. Overall, my thoughts on these stages are that since they're fairly straightforward recreations, there's a level of impact that is being lost. It could just be that SNK didn't have a ton of budget to put towards this PS2 port. Overall though, these are still nice renditions and a great way to play this game on a different system. Now, let's talk about handheld games. KOF R1 has most stages from KOF 97, with recreative environments for the Neo Geo Pocket and black and white static images. So really quickly, I'm going to be going over some of the differences between 97 and R1, so bear with me. First of all, the Monaco stage has less detail, people, and no Master Roshi, but you still get the general gist. The USA stage is similar to Monaco in that there are definitely some missing details, but still has the boat and the general vibes. Despite the reduced detail, what they did with these backgrounds is still pretty impressive considering the hardware limitations. And finally, not all stages in this game are completely still. The Orochi stages actually have some animations with the glowing cracks on the floor and the flashing pillars. In KOF R1, the songs are character specific and not selectively dependent on the team songs like in KOF 97. So no atmospheric ambiance, though the 8-bit music is very charming and captures that energetic feeling. Overall, the feel of this game is, in my opinion, pretty good, but a little bit slower paced than the original. King of Fighters 97 is a standout game in the series for me because it shows KOF as this annual event to be celebrated around the world. It's something that really contrasts with tournaments in other fighting games, such as the King of Iron Fist, Mortal Kombat, and Street Fighter tourneys. In a game like Street Fighter, for example, the tourney comes off as more spontaneous, which is heavily implied in the title of the series. Your characters fight in the environment as is. They are Street Fighters after all. Whereas on the other hand, for the most part in King of Fighters tournaments, and especially in 97, everything is staged and planned. There are people coming from all over the world to specifically watch the tournament, set the stages, and to televise these matches worldwide. Now, that's not to say that one style is better than the other, but just different. One game emphasizes the importance of its tournament while the other doesn't. Let's use Street Fighter as an example again. With every new game in the series, the process of how the actual tournament works just gets more and more ambiguous, with the most recent 5th game not even having a tournament to speak of. Just some big ol' mecha moon. Again, not better or worse, but just different. King of Fighters isn't the most well-recognized fighting game series, especially in America, but it's one that I feel really deserves more, and hopefully this video was able to do just that. Anyways, thanks again, don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time.